This is New School Beer Fireside Chats. Today we're talking about the reopening of Oregon bars, breweries, and tap rooms. In the post-coronavirus world, I wanted to get everyone's perspective on the new normal and what's going to happen. We have people from a number of different breweries and pubs here from across the state. I'm going to introduce everyone before we get started. Josh, can you introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks. I'm Josh pFriem, brewmaster, co-founder of pFriem Family Brewers.
Tony?
Hey guys, Tony Lawrence here, Boneyard Beer, co-founder, master brewer.
Colby?
Colby Phillips, co-owner of Beergarden, PublicHouse, and Tap and Growler in Eugene, Springfield area, as well as co-founder of Porter, a table ordering software web app.
And Dan?
Hi, my name is Dan Hart. I own a handful of bars here in Portland, Oregon. I own Prost, Stammtisch, Interurban, Bantam Tavern, as well as our bar cart called Blood Buzz.
Jeez.
And I'm in Portland, so we have people representing Hood River, Bend, Eugene, and Portland here. Right now we're in beginnings of phase one of the reopening of dine-in service in most of the counties in Oregon, but not all of them. Portland is not included yet, but pretty much everyone else here can now technically open up.
They pivoted to doing some to-go beer and food at all of our establishments. The biggest thing for us, well, multiple things that we're excited about wanting to do. Well, we wanted to still see our customers and still be able to provide a service. That's why we're in this industry, and that's what we love about it. Being on the service side, we like taking care of people. We like giving them food, we like giving them beer. We also had a bunch of product on hand. For the most part, all of our food, we donated to all the staff, but beer, we had tons of beer at all the spots. So it's like, let's have some fun. Let's open up the doors and see who comes by and get them some beer to go. And it's been successful. And the restaurant side of things, it took us a little bit to restock, get our kitchen crew back on, at least the chefs, getting them back on board to have the proper amount of supply. And business has been fine. It's a struggle. It's not record-breaking numbers, anything that we're doing, but it's fun for us. That's what we're passionate about doing. And we're just trying to scrapping by to break even. That's really the whole purpose. We're not making any money. Ain't nobody making any money, but there's an opportunity to keep our management on board, as well as preserve their health benefits and everything else, and have that continuity moving forward. But it's been fun. It's been a blast. It's making me bartend more than I have in years. So, that's a positive if there's anything to come out of it. But been decent.
Colby, you've been pretty much shut down, but you've been doing a little bit of delivery and to-go at some of your establishments, right?
Yeah, so right after the shutdown, we closed down Tap and Growler temporarily, and we kept Beergarden and PublicHouse going for to-go orders. So just through our software program, people could order for pickup and delivery. And so we did our own delivery, and we still are at Beergarden right now with the food vendors there. We have 5 food vendors there and food trucks, plus our pub. So we're using our canner to do crowlers, some to-go package. We have bottles and cans, and combined it with the 5 food trucks there. It's worked out pretty well. I don't know if you guys have done it, but delivering beer to someone's porch, you get a pretty good response out of it. It's a lot of fun. So I've been doing some delivery, which I've never done. I've been enjoying that over there. And then PublicHouse, we did that as well, but we ran into just a few, some employee issues. That's been one of the things is keeping people going with the delivery part. So we just kept the to-go going, and then we started the delivery back up recently. And then this last weekend, we opened back up for the phase 1 opening at PublicHouse. So we're not doing the delivery there at all right now. It's just takeout and seating.
Mm-hmm. And how about you, Tony?
Similar stories. Little backstory first is, our pub and our experience in the hospitality industry is pretty new overall, especially for myself and in general Boneyard procedures and operations. And so the first year or two, as we all know, can be slightly difficult. And we were really trending for the last few quarters, watching the PL month to month and trending all these things. We're really kind of starting to high five each other because we're maybe going to get in the green somewhere or something like that. And then this thing hit, and so be it. We're all in the same boat together. Overall, it surprised me. We pivoted, as the others did, to delivery and takeaway from our south patio. We retained the management team, kept them all on, and salary and their benefits, and as the key players to help us restructure when we need to restructure and come out of this thing. But in general, we had a lot of product to move, and that helped move a small fraction of it. But we had a lot of fun doing it. I think the camp management team delivering beer and interacting under these strange conditions worked out pretty well. I don't think really the bookkeeping aspect of it is anything to pay attention to too much right now. We may or may not break even. We pretty much didn't break even already anyhow. So it's been fun for us. We haven't opened yet. We're targeting this Thursday. Felt like we were pretty prepared, but when push came to shove and the guidelines said we could open last Friday, I believe it is, the team looked at me and they just said they're not ready yet. A lot of the decisions we've trying to make or have made so far were within regards to all the compliance issues, how our staff and team is feeling about our preparedness in regards to their welfare or the customer's welfare, and of course the customer. So we decided to give it an extra week or so, and we're trying to launch this Thursday, and hope we're prepared. We'll be doing outside seating only. We have a fairly vast outside area, so we're going to run that way. We can the guests can order from the south patio, which has access to the POS system, and we'll run it out to you at your table. And of course, we'll sort of have a monitor controller shuffling people about and seating, etc. So we're just learning as we're moving on, as like everybody else.
What's the rules right now as far as having a single server for tables? Isn't that kind of part of some of the suggested guidelines? Is that factoring in?
If you're directing that at me, can you repeat that again, Ezra?
Yes, sorry for you, Tony. I saw some guidelines where the governor was suggesting that only one person would serve each table, so limiting the amount of contacts. Is that accurate? Does that factor into it at all?
I'm playing catch up. I feel like we've done a fair amount of due diligence, but I'm not completely up to speed on everything. I'm hoping my GM and team are. The brewing side of operations kind of kicked my ass the last 4 weeks trying to pivot to cans. So I just came off the concrete last Friday and trying to turn my attention to compliance and working with my team in the hospitality side of things. So I'll listen in closely as others comment.
Okay.
That is a recommendation, Ezra. That's not a guideline. It's a recommendation that you limit the amount of servers that are touching each table, but it's not a strict guideline.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's the ideal scenario. Sometimes in different concepts, you do have multiple people touching tables. By touching, I mean visiting a table, but it is not a guideline.
That's good to know. That seemed like it would work out well for the Boneyard pub, because last time I was there, right, you just order at the counter, and then didn't you even have like a system where you could place orders from the table?
Sure, we were already using that, what I'll kind of say newer model, or giving a shot anyhow. You order at the counter and it'll be ran out to you, coupled with a similar service to what Colby provides, also from Eugene, strangely, which, I don't recall. I think maybe about 10% previously to COVID of the orders came through the automated system. Or clearly we're hoping to really drive that home now, and we see an opportunity to re-educate ourselves and our customers to this newer model that they can order from their phone and things will just magically show up at their spot.
Okay. And Josh, at pFriem, when you guys started off, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a little bit more of a tasting room, less food was kind of the idea at the beginning, right?
Yeah. Still on that train. When things started to close up, we lost a good portion of our business, through our restaurant and then draft sales. Obviously, we package a lot of beer, and so we had to make some major pivots and make some major decisions. We've been keeping it pretty mellow on what we've had to offer in Hood River. Hood River is a small town, so we don't have the traffic or the density that Portland does, and a lot of our business that we do in Hood River is from folks coming from elsewhere. And so been really careful about what we're doing and what we're not doing in order to make a safe environment for our employees, and then also just to respect the need of what our town needs. And so we took a pause on all service for a couple weeks, and then we reopened a couple weeks ago to doing some online curb service, limited hours. Put your beer in via online, and then we'll have it ready for you, put in your trunk. We're going to expand that later this week, but we're still going to hold off on food for a little bit longer. We're starting to figuring out when exactly we're going to do that, but it'll probably be after Memorial Day sometime, and then work for a plan after that of when we'll actually be able to pick up full food service.
So will you be able to sit down and have a beer there before you do food service?
Not at this point. So we're looking at a staggered process of this next wave. It'll be still no one coming into our building, just doing curbside, and then sometime after Memorial Day we'll add food in that, and then we don't have a date set up yet when we'll actually have people come to our building or into our patio area.
Mm. So I'm guessing you're not too comfortable with just reopening fully for a while. Is there a certain thing you're looking to have happen before you're ready to come in for dine-in service again?
For sure. I think everyone's situation is going to be really unique, and every business owner, operator is going to have to look at their own business and see what they have to work with, and what their level of safety and comfort is. For us, safety is top priority for our employees and for people coming in. We're across the street from a park that's a busy place, and we have a lot of crowd management in general in the busy summertime. And so the easy part for us has been making layouts and making plans. We have a good way that we can take out a bunch of tables and seat people in our library area, in our main dining room, and outside, and have a good amount of spread and points of contact. But one of the hardest things for us is looking at crowd control. People, we made a very social place. I mean, beer is very social. So how do we make it in a fashion that people can come into pFriem, and then we can control them, that other people feel safe. And so that we're not sure how that's totally going to work yet. We're going to hang back for a little bit, watch what some other folks do. And then the good news for us, though, with to-go service, is that we are right across the street from the park, and there's an open container law in Hood River. So people will be able to come get food, get beer, food eventually, beer now, and go across the street to the park, and it can be open air, outdoors, and in a safe setting.
Dan, what are you thinking about reopening right now? Do you have some time with the delay of Portland, Multnomah County not being able to reopen yet to kind of make your plans and be ready to open when they allow us to do so? And are you conflicted at all about that?
Sure. Yeah, we do get a little bit of bonus time, but to be honest, we've been planning for weeks, if not months, about how we're going to address it moving forward. So we didn't just start thinking about it recently. We knew we didn't know, but we took the safe prediction on what was going to happen when we reopened. We knew social distancing was going to be an issue. We knew sanitation. We knew occupancy was going to be cut in half at least. We had that going on. So we've been thinking about it for weeks on end, figuring out design, for our floor plans, what would be able to work, what doesn't. Just adjusting everything in our mindset, and also at the same time, since we started doing this, keeping our minds open and being fluid with how things were going to be affected. And that's, something that we've been preaching when we've been having our management meetings at all the different locations is, let's start working on a plan. Obviously, a couple weeks back, 2 or 3 weeks back, there was that original outline that came out from the state that gave us a little bit of a blueprint, but we had a feeling some of those things were going to change. So, but we immediately started thinking on how that would apply to us. But at the same time, just being ready to maneuver in any direction that would make sense, and that would apply to us in a relevant way. So obviously, yes, we're excited to get back up and running again. Obviously, we have our concerns. We have our safety measures that we're not waiting to blast the doors open and just go cowboy on this and just let everything fly. We're doing it in a very thoughtful, conscientious way to provide safety for the staff. As we all know, it's going to be redundant, in every conversation that you have, is the safety of our staff and the safety of our guests is paramount to everything. But we feel confident and comfortable at a level that we know how we can achieve what we need to make the best experience that we can. It's obviously not going to be 100% the same coming out of the gates. It's going to be odd. It's going to be a little bit rigid. It's not going to have that fluidity that we once did. And just what we always like to say is we're there to throw a party. The party is going to be a little different at this point. But people are itching for that community. I mean, that, once again, going back to what I talked about, why I'm in this industry and why my staff and my management is in this industry, is we're hosts. We have a true passion for hosting people into our establishment, showing them a good time, giving them a great beverage, giving them great food. It's going to take a little rethinking, and we've been doing that. And, it's developing every day. I mean, that's all I do is sit here and think about how we can make it all happen. But we're developing systems, and we feel really confident on what we can do. But it doesn't mean we know everything. As soon as we reopen and we have plans in place, doesn't mean we're not going to have to flip that all on its head the next day and be like, this didn't work. We want to have these strong ideas going into it, but we're not naive and cocky enough to think that we have all the answers on what the best way to achieve it is. It's a learning experience for us, obviously, but it's going to be a massive learning curve for the guest and how they operate and how they understand and how they walk through a bar and their patience with us and their understanding. There's a lot of different aspects to it, but we feel good about it.
Someone was mentioning how difficult it is to flip a switch and get open. Maybe it's Tony. You guys wait until Thursday because your staff wasn't ready. So we were hoping to open PublicHouse and Beergarden on Friday, but we couldn't pull it off. In fact, it was a struggle to get PublicHouse ready to go. But our crew was determined and ready to do it. So we opened Friday, Beergarden Wednesday, and then sometime in the future for Tap and Growler. It's going to take us a little bit to navigate this. And we already learned a few best practices over the weekend for PublicHouse that we're going to implement at Beergarden. So it's a phased approach for us. Also, Tap and Growler's in an area at the Fish Street Market where they're going for kind of a combined opening in early June. So we're going to maybe jump on board with that. But yeah, if you wanted me to talk about the PublicHouse opening, I don't know if that was something you're interested in.
Yeah, I'm interested in what made you make the decision to open up immediately, and what kind of extra thought went into that. Does having the Porter app you've mentioned factor into that at all? Does that make it easier?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that, it's just a lot to navigate right now. And one is at PublicHouse, You guys may not have been down there, but it's about a 10 or 11,000 square foot building. It's an old church with big open stained glass kind of cathedral, that's really expensive to heat and cool. And it just costs a lot of money to operate that building. And so us just doing takeout and delivery wasn't an option. We wouldn't survive like that for very long at PublicHouse. So that was the one that we wanted to get open first. It's a food hall as well. So we have 5 food vendors there as well. And we needed to help keep them solvent as well. So prioritizing that to open was important. Beer Garden is a food truck pod with our central pub, not unlike Dan, yours up there in Portland, where you kind of have a parking lot and all that, and it's all fenced in. And so that one was doing a fair bit better on takeout and delivery. It's in the Whitaker neighborhood. So I think there's a little bit just more people around that area, more density of living. And it's just a lot less costly to operate. So we felt like we could postpone that one for a little bit and be okay. And so for PublicHouse, when we went to open it, one of the reasons we feel really good about PublicHouse and Beer Garden opening right now is it has so much outdoor seating, and even our indoor space is open and airy. So feels like a real safe environment for people to come in. We got a big grassy field in the back at PublicHouse where patrons can go in there, and picnic tables are spread out really far, and it's just feels really safe. But we also felt like the only way you could really pull it off is with our Porter software. We developed it initially just so people would have another opportunity to order from their table. They wouldn't have to go up to the bar, but we still have counter service. So it's just another option. But as it turns out, it is kind of perfectly suited for us, this pandemic. We certainly didn't have this in mind. But you take credit card payments through there. So it also runs credit cards. So patrons could open their tab from their table and close it from their table and never go up to a bar. It also incorporates all the food vendors. So a patron could open up the app. It's a web app. They go to our website and open it up. And all the food vendors menus are on there, and our beer and cider menus, and also our cocktail bars on there. So they could order everything on one tab for them and have it delivered to their tables from all these different vendors. The other part that was really important to that is that eliminated counter service. So there's no patron to staff interaction at the bar. It's only at the delivery at the table, which is a much shorter duration of time. And then all the food vendors could run to those tables. We have on there, so it keeps it simple. The issue that we're up against with the food hall and Beer Garden is there's not really a great way for us to have lines with 6 foot of distance and tables. So Beer Garden's kind of a U shape in the back with the food vendor surrounding the court. So if you had lines, we wouldn't have any tables, and we wouldn't have enough tables to justify opening. We couldn't even do it at Beer Garden. I don't know what we do. And PublicHouse would be difficult as well. So we just, we're lucky we have the software available to us, but all the patrons have to use Porter. We don't use, there's no counter service at all. And the weekend went really well. We have about 60% of our normal capacity on seats, but we did about 80% of our normal business. Patrons seem to be okay with the software. I mean, it's a big switch. It's like you guys are saying, it's a completely different environment. It's a party, but it's a different kind of party now. A lot of people like to go talk to the bartenders and get samples and stuff. That's a part of going to craft beer establishments. But they all, I think, for the vast majority of customers, seem to just understand this is, how we're going to have to do it to navigate right now. So it went really well there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, to get Josh's take on that a little bit, especially with like coming to glassware and how you actually serve customers, because pFriem uses a few different kinds of glasses and stuff for different styles of beer. I mean, is that a concern on how many people are touching it?
Those are the little details that we're still working on dialing in. I think whether you have a bunch of different types of glassware or just shaker pints, you still have the same mission that you're going to have to get this vessel full of beer, in a sanitary way to a customer. As we haven't fully gotten to that level yet, but, we're going to want to avoid a point of contact of with wearing gloves and keeping hands clean, and then face masks for any projectiles. But we were before COVID, we ran a really tight ship. Everyone that's ever worked for me knows how important it is to have clean glassware and for everything to be super clean all the time. So it's that's not going to be a major stretch. I think that's actually that element. It's things that we're less worried about than other things because we can control those. I think where we're most hesitant on a lot of the areas that we can't control just yet. I don't know if any of you guys have thoughts on that on the glassware side, like how to get that, make sure that's safe to a customer.
Yeah. Anybody have something to add on that?
From our camp, it's still kind of similar to Josh, at least as I see it for now. We've been so deep in other compliance issues that seem to be taking priority, as strange as that may sound, but I love that topic. And I'm going to jump in on that one and start to pay attention to what others are doing, how the brewers can be in terms of their sensitivity to things like this. So what looks and seems right, because maybe we can drive more interest in pitchers, maybe. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, are you guys going to limit how many people can come in groups? I know the mandate is up to 10 per table. It seems kind of like a lot, and especially being difficult with how much spacing you have to have, and much less capacity now. Anyone have a take on that and how to handle things like that? Or policies you're going to put in place for groups, or even like.
I think there's a lot of learning on the fly. For us, we're setting up a hostess sort of traffic controller station right at the edge of the parking lot before you come onto the patios. And we're taking that very seriously, and we're just going to have to learn as we go. We've been sort of developing a couple different matrix flow charts, if you will. One would be for the employees and their managers based off given scenarios, how we might be able to handle different scenarios, as I just mentioned. Or equally, the matrix is smaller, how to deal with the interactions with some customers that might have something silly to say or something that just puts the controller in an awkward situation. We're hoping that some of those flow charts and matrix will help us navigate some of these scenarios. But I'm sure, like any SOP, adjustments will be made to it daily.
Yeah. Colby, I mean, have you had any issues yet with customers and how they're acting, regarding the guidelines, best health guidelines?
Yeah. So we have 3 days of data points, I guess, but it's better than nothing right now. We're like Tony, we have someone at the door, and especially in the evenings, it's a dedicated person to the door. And what we're doing with that person is they're telling people how we're doing it and what to do and where to go and helping them find seats and all that. And we found like that's critical right now to have that person, because they eliminate, what we could tell is they probably eliminated 90% of issues before the patron even stepped in. Also helps with making sure people aren't wandering around and gathering in areas. That's really important. The governor said that was important. So having a queue is important, it's hard when it's raining, which it was on Saturday, but that person controls that. And then you were talking about glassware. We have a dedicated busser, that's wearing gloves, because you're supposed to wear gloves to bus the tables, and you got to sanitize everything, the chairs, every last little bit before another table could get seated there. Well, behind a bar in the kitchen, they really kind of advocate for you not wearing gloves. You should wash your hands, and it's better, better that way. So we have a dedicated busser, and those two people between the door person and the busser help to take care of the customers. They'll show them how to use the software for one, but also helping with the seating and keeping them from the counters and all that.
Mm-hmm. Dan, you arguably probably have the most bar seating. When I say bar seating, I literally mean like sidling up to a bar to order of anyone between all your places. how is that going to be affected? Because we cannot do that right now, right?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, and that's why, when we're talking about occupancy, I think it's officially about 50% is what the governor's recommendation was. But, I love bars, and that's what I build. And I build bar-dominant bars. We like people being belly up. So when it comes down to it, with restricted seating, the 6 feet guidelines, everything else, we're really looking at like 30% occupancy at some of the places, even less at some. Some are better than others. Prost has a great opportunity because of the beer garden out there. But say Stammtisch, we have 24 seats at the bar. That's 24 seats off the table right away. So that hurts, It's really unfortunate that we couldn't figure out, I was hoping for a little leeway on that. Understanding certain bars have just, even larger than Stammtisch, where it's at 24 seats. Some are even longer. I understand, like sitting at near a service station or a pouring station where you're mixing cocktails, anything else, that would make sense to not put somebody seated right in front of that type of situation, somebody in that situation. But I think there's other opportunities, but I understand you gotta kind of make it blanket as opposed to trying to adapt to every specific venue, because there's thousands upon thousands in the state and you can't get nitpicky. And the documentation, the documents that would detail how every establishment can run would be the length of a phone book. So I get that. But yeah, that really hurts our occupancy. We're looking at some different things at different bars to encourage that. We're filing for some street seating that the city of Portland is looking into being open to. That will get us a couple extra tables. At Bantam Tavern in Northwest, we have the luxury that a lot of bars don't have, which is a parking lot. In Northwest Portland, that's pretty rare in the Portland metro area in general to have a bar that has a parking lot. We're working with the OLCC to extend our permanently licensed premise out into the parking lot. So essentially expanding our beer garden. Our existing patio only could seat, if you're at max, if you're getting the largest groups possible per table, could only sit like 10 people tops. And on the inside, we would only have 2 available tables. So at Bantam Tavern, which Bantam is for small chicken, it's because we're a small, feisty bar, because it's very small, punches out of its weight class kind of idea. But we're in a tough position there where trying to reopen, and we have 4 tables. And also, in regards to your talk about size of the tables and the parties that are able to come in, yeah, host stands are mandatory at this point. I mean, there's no way of getting around it. My establishments are, I like to be a little bit more free flowing, have places where, it's not as rigid. It's not a hostess to a table to a 3-course meal, and then you get up on your way to go. It's much more fluid. That causes problems within this, so we have to adapt to that. Host stand at certain spots, reservations are going to be key to find those big groups and situate them, because once again, take Bantam for example that I was just speaking of, and we have 4 tables that are available. That could be 4 one-tops that walk in, 4 single people. Not only do we have 4 tables, we could have 4 patrons there, and we're not in the business of being like, oh, you're not a 6-top that's going to spend $100. Your business isn't worth it to us. We want to be able to have those single people come in, and that's where the bar comes in, most handy at all of our establishments. Somebody comes in just wanting a quick beer or 2 and maybe a light snack, they sit at the bar. Not having that available to us is extremely unfortunate, because we could be at max load at 4 people. That's tricky. That's where reservations come into play. That's right, utilizing as max occupancy as you can, and utilizing your tables as well as possible. We're not going to do 100% reservation system. Some of them we won't do reservations at all, perhaps. but 50% reservations so we can maximize our tables and make it worth our servers' time as well. You know, they got to be in there and trying to make a dollar. So being smart and utilizing every square inch in the safest way possible is what's most important, because otherwise, you know, there's with how spacing works and how you have to navigate through the restaurants and bars, it gets very tricky, and the amount of tables, once you start doing the math and laying it out, really shrinks down on you really quickly. So we're open to everything, and we'll see how some of the things work. And reservations might be a nightmare, or reservations might just be the wave of the future while going through this, just to make the math pencil out.
Speaking of that, and speaking of the future, I'm curious, like, Josh, do you have any thoughts on the future of the pFriem tap room? Is it mostly finding ways to mitigate what's happening right now, or is there any thoughts on like completely redeveloping the space or how things work? Because if this goes on, it seems like a lot of these techniques are a little bit of band-aids that could only maybe be temporary solutions. I mean, is there any more like forward-thinking ideas that you have thought about, you know, as far as future taproom sales go?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of models that are being developed that are going to be sticking around, and it'll depend on your space and setup, which ones you hold on to or let go. You know, for us, when we talk about bringing service back up, we talk about it being a quicker service than we would have encouraged or been part of in the past. That eliminate some processes, minimize people's time within the with getting service. I think things like curbside business, online ordering, I think people are going to get used to those and use those more and more. And then I think we're fairly open right now and adapting and learning. I think just like the theme for everybody, that they're just taking in information so much every day, having meetings, having conversation with team. I think there's going to be a lot of nimbleness that's going to need to happen, trying some things, learning what's other people are doing that's successful. But we're preparing for a world where we have this kind of like Dan was talking about, like 50% for quite some period of time. But once again, we're a little bit opposite situation maybe than so Dan's like smaller spots is that we have a lot more room to spread out, and that we'll have to use that to our advantage. And so that may allow us to not have to be as creative as other people have to.
Tony, your original brewery just had like the tiny little tasting room, right? Where you couldn't really even have a full beer on site, right? And then how long has the pub been open now? Only a couple of years?
Pub's closing in on 2 years. So yeah, that'd be this July, second week in July, I believe. What's funny is we've reopened the original location on Lake Street during these times, mostly just to keep a couple people still on the staff on the payroll and kind of do a little throwback to the local little neighborhood over there. They're not invited inside the building. We got nice, open up the window and kind of just do some quick little takeaway transactions. Pretty simple little operation, but it just felt good to kind of go back to that address and kind of have a little fun with it. I don't think it's sustainable. We'll probably, after the pub gets back in full swing, we'll probably go ahead and shut that down. So that's been fun. The pub, I've been listening to what everybody has to say. I think we're all making adjustments on the fly, and as Josh said, looking to see what's working for others, and maybe, if not already, putting those into play for what we making adjustments to what we currently do. I think our pub, we're somewhat fortunate. We have a lot of elbow space. We're going, like as I mentioned, outdoor only, and there's a lot of room there with multiple entrance and exits from three different points of access. all of which are not from the building itself. So, you know, maybe before, I think our sort of our meandering building and meandering decks seem to be kind of awkward and difficult to deal with, but I guess now they're going to be an asset. I certainly hope so.
Have you rethought, you know, that model at all? I mean, you've always been primarily a draft brewery, and then pretty small amount into actual on-premise, and then just now, in the past couple of weeks, launching cans. So, like, do you think that cans are going to become a larger portion of the business? Are you rethinking your involvement in like draft versus, you know, on-premise pints over the bar?
Well, I think they're all just, we're just figuring it out on the fly, but I think they're all going to end up working well together. Example, some of these lesser known brands, now that they have kind of their standalone package with the branding on that package, I think I'm getting a much more of a relationship with the consumer and the customer to these other brands, which is driving some business currently to our takeaway, you know, off-site. Before, the cans and the 12-ounce configuration, crowler machines, 2 of them spinning, lots of RPM, you guess it. But since the addition of the 6-packs and sort of, again, seeing these other brands that are shiny with their labels and stuff, we've got a lot more interest into other SKUs. So that's been really fun for me to watch, and we're watching that closely to see how that plays out. I think it's a good thing, clearly.
Cool. Colby, I mean, what do you see for the future of your spots? I mean, would you change anything if you could right now? If you were to open another place, like, how would you do it right now?
I'd make sure there's a lot of space and wide open, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, we've thought about that. Like, someone asked me, what do you see everything looking like in a few months or a year? And like, I don't know. I mean, I'm getting a clearer picture now, but yeah, I'm just wondering, is takeout and delivery going to be more of a thing when we open back up, you know, and this is all past us? Maybe or maybe not. I thought it was pretty impressive that OLCC pivoted that quickly to allow us to do that. So that might be something that sticks around, and you do a little bit of both. I know with us at PublicHouse, having such an expensive building to maintain, that's something that I would think twice about in the future, probably. Without this kind of a pandemic, it wasn't a problem. I mean, I wouldn't say it's another problem. It's definitely something you have to think about. It's definitely a line item and a fixed cost. So I'd be a little bit more wary of that, I suppose, and over leveraging and, you know, and that, like, keeping the cash flow a little bit better. And the debt ratio is a little bit lower probably going forward. As far as the look and feel of places, I'm just a really big fan of open air. I mean, that was been a big part of what we did. PublicHouse has that big lawn in the back that wasn't being utilized when we moved in. But first thing I did when we did our walkthrough of that place is like, I think this could work because I've got that space back there that adds a ton more seating, and I'm not paying for that in rent. And so I think those are what I'm thinking, you know, about a lot of outdoor seating.
And Dan, if you were going to open up a new place right now, I mean, how would you do it differently? I mean, bring it back around a little bit to the actual bar seating. I mean, is there a future where we don't even have bar seating ever again? Like, would it even be worth it to put in a bar now, or do you think, you know, you just got to wait out this difficult period and we'll be able to do that again?
I certainly lean towards the latter. I think people want it. Things will go back to normal, and I think, you know, to some kind of normal at some point. You know, it's going to take some time, and we'll see how things go. But I don't think our society is going to change on the experiences that they enjoy. Yeah, obviously, right now I kind of shot myself in the foot on this one because I like more intimate small spots. And I love my outdoor seating. Outdoor seating was a great thing for me currently, but I like more intimate spots, you know, that you can have an experience where you're with the bartender. You know, I would say the bartender and the service, and especially the bartender at some of the bars, it's part of the entertainment. That we're putting on a show, you know, it's not like we're putting on a show where it's all fancy and all frilly and everything else, but it's part of the experience that, let's say, Interurban or Bantam, where we're a lot more cocktail heavy. We serve a lot of craft beer, but they're known to be cocktail bars. And even at a beer bar, for me, my experience with what I enjoy about bars is going with friends, but also going by myself and be able to sit with the bartender, experience that along with them, have that dialogue, watch what they're doing. To me, it's just part of the reason why I go to bars. I'm a bartender by trade. I say I'm not a businessman. I'm just a bartender that owns businesses. And that's what's most important to me. And I can't wait for the day that we can get back to that. I understand where we're at, and that's going to take some time. But I think that's important, you know. Otherwise, you know, for me, anybody can go grab an RPM or a pFriem Pilsner and go back to their buddy's house and drink beer with their buddies. It's a lot cheaper doing that, as it turns out. But that's why you go to a bar, is to be a part of that interaction. And it's an experience-driven thing for me. And that's why, you know, I'm a little, you know, forward thinking and working right away with my team, trying to figure out how we're going to reopen, because, you know, we have no other option. You know, I respect and love what pFriem and what Boneyard does. Both are some of my favorite breweries. Carry your guys' beer all the time. I don't get to go shift to packaging cans and doing other things and figure out how we're going to get beer out into the market on that front. Service is what we do. That's what we do at first and foremost. That's what we sell. We sell service, and then we happen to have some good beer and cocktails along the way. So trying to figure out how to get back to that, you know, I'm optimistic. I don't think I'm alone in experiences to going out to a bar and going out to a restaurant. There's something to be able to kick your feet back, relax, have somebody take care of you. And I mean, anybody can cook food at home, make a phenomenal meal, make a cheeseburger at home, and drink a 6-pack of beer for a third of the price that it costs going to one of my restaurants. But that's why I say that's not what we sell. We sell service, and I think people are they crave it, and they're going to want to go back, even when this pandemic, you know, hopefully clears sooner than later. I don't think everybody's minds are going to be instantly transformed to going to, but like, I'm staying at home all the time now. You know, I'm afraid of the next flu that's going to happen. Blah, blah, blah. These things happen over the history of time. This isn't unprecedented times. It's unprecedented for our generation, but it's not. These things happen, and it's horrible. And I hate where we're at right now. I wake up kind of angry every day, but you got to kind of get over that. It's like, let's look forward to a brighter future, and hopefully we can get back to it.
I got one quick question again for you, Dan. You're still working on opening up a Prost in Bend, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Tony, we're going to be neighbors here soon. Unfortunately, yeah, that all went to a screeching halt, a couple months ago. But we're still in the process. We're still under lease. We're still our landlord out there has been phenomenal. I've been very understanding since this thing popped up. He reached out, while my finger's on the dial, and he already was letting us know. He's like, let's put everything on hold. This thing's going to be a pain. Don't worry about rent right now. We're going to figure it out. Let's just put a pause on everything. But yeah, we're still excited to go out. We'll be out there in Bend. We've been looking out there for 8 years now. And finally found a location that we're excited about. And we're going to go full steam ahead. We're working on plans to get things moving. It's not the most ideal time to invest a bunch of money in a new bar. I'm sure Josh's Cascade Locks is like, damn it, what am I doing right now? But once again, I see an end to it at some point, and I think it's going to be successful out there. So we're still excited to be going out there. So no change of plans on that front.
Yeah, I think, this, we look at this next week and, kind of maybe call it like this early summer period. I think it's going to be in this time of really need to react and learn and take in information. For us, it's going to be adapting our business to it, but then also trying to survive in the meantime. A brewery has a big overhead, and there's a lot of financial pressure currently put on us in these times. But I think it's optimistic to a lot of Dan's point that I think, as humanity has always overcome pandemics and really challenging situations. And when they get done with it, they always come together for beer, right? And want that energy. And we want to be there to give that to them. So we're going to be incrementally making plans and building up to keep our business going. But I think it's going to be a hard year. I think we're going to be living in this partial world for a while. And I think we're going to lose some businesses in the beer business, some of our peers, and that's going to be really hard. I think, we're not going to see all the restaurants open back up, and that's also going to be really, really hard. And I think for us, we're looking at how do we adapt and how do we make sure that we're standing strong on the other side of this. But we do think there's going to be another side of it, and we'll be looking at a lot brighter days come, a year from now.
How about you, Tony?
Well, there's a lot of unknowns. I do agree with a lot of what the other guests are saying. Something's going to happen here. We'll get through this, whether it's 60 days or 600 days. I'm not sure which one it is. In between now and then, going to keep it simple, make all the adjustments necessary, try not to overreact, and stay calm, stay clean, stay healthy, and just navigate these difficult waters as best we can. I mean, I wouldn't call that simple, but it's the way to survive.
Colby, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. But also I want to ask, what was the reaction like to the public when you opened PublicHouse? Like, what's the community there like, you being the only one that has a place actually open?
Yeah, the public response was good. Like I said, we have about 60% seating, but we had 80% of the business year over year. It was 60% on Friday because we just have a capacity issue on Friday, but Sunday was like 95% year over year. So certainly people came out. Now, there weren't that many places open either. So, it's not like everybody's going out. And what we've seen internationally, what at least I've seen and talked to people about, has been a little bit slow to begin with, but then people do keep coming out as long as something doesn't get worse for some reason. But that's what we saw. And the people that came in were just they were just happy to be able to come in. And, we had it's a completely new flow. We had someone at the door they're not used to, and you got to use a software to order. And we could just universally, everyone was just happy to be there, and they just do whatever they needed to do. Didn't see a lot of masks. I think the people that came out were the ones that are just maybe a little bit less concerned about that. But it was a pretty good positive experience. I thought it was, and our staff was very enthusiastic. I will say that they were just happy to be out there as well. So,
where do you see your businesses in a year from now? I mean, do you think it'll be back to normal?
Yeah, I mean, I was, Tony, 60 days or 600, like who knows? I think it's at least 6 months of this partial. The governor with the mandate suggested without a vaccine or a robust treatment, we're not opening back up past this 6-foot capacity level, right? Well, that looks like it's at least 6 months, if not a year or a year and a half. So our plan is that, we're going to be thinking about that with every move we make. Like, how do we navigate this? We might put a tent out at PublicHouse in that big grassy area in the wintertime to try and make sure that we have enough seating to get through the wintertime there. Already have one at Beergarden. That'll be very effective. So Beergarden, we open up. I think we're planning on still doing takeout and delivery because we think that might be kind of necessary to keep the cash flowing the way that we need to. I don't know if we absolutely necessary, but I think it'll be probably really beneficial. And we're just going to kind of go with that, continue to do takeout at PublicHouse and even looking at delivery there as well if we feel like it could be a benefit.
Mm-hmm. And Dan, I mean, how are things looking for you for the next few weeks that Portland is likely on lockdown? Is anything going to change?
We're just staying the course right now with our takeout services at all the spots. We're doing at least 5 days a week at almost everywhere. Stammtisch just went to 7 days this past week. That's been a great success for us so far. So once again, not making any money by success. I mean, it's just hemorrhaging less than than what we could be. But we're fortunate on that spot because we kind of got a niche market right there with the German food and the German beer. So people have been stoked about that. So right now we're just hanging tight, and as some people have been saying, we get the fortune that we have while we're sitting here twiddling our thumbs right now is we get to watch, we get to observe, and that's the part of learning and understanding is watching what works elsewhere. So while we wish we were leading the charge here and going into it and back up to speed right already, we get to sit back and watch Eugene, watch Bend, watch those counties and see how they're going about it and seeing what works. I've been in conversation with multiple friends down there in Eugene in particular. My alma mater of Rennie's Landing down there, they opened up for service on Friday and they learned some stuff right out of the gates. And they made some good decisions. They probably made some bad decisions that they needed to rethink. Nothing unsafe, but when you run into all these issues, it quickly makes you think to how you can solve them. So we're gonna hang tight, just try to be smart, and that's how I see, the next year going for us is slowing down, being smart about every small decision. Not like we don't overthink every decision we ever make, but be smart, be efficient, and try to stay the course. There's going to be an end. Who knows when it's going to be, but we'll find out when we get there. And in the meantime, we just got to be clever, and because there's going to be a lot of attrition out there with all the restaurants and bars in Portland. I don't know how many thousands of bars and restaurants there are here. I think there's too many to count. Not all of them are going to make it, and that's really sad. It's going to be hard to watch, and it's going to be disappointing. We're going to, lose some friends along the way. Some of our favorite old haunts and our favorite lunch meals and our favorite, date night dinner spots. Some of those things might not make it through. So we got to figure out a way to continue on and just be smart about it. Once again, I'm kind of fortunate that my spots are small and we're neighborhood haunts. I don't own a 300-seat restaurant and try to make it through this type of scenario that, it's a $50 a head restaurant. That's not my department. We're just neighborhood spots that can kind of chug along and do what we can.
Okay, I'm gonna call this the official end of the recording. Thank you guys all for joining me.
Thank you,
Thanks, Ez.